Hello everybody. So we have gotten a lot of questions in the comments about how we actually mix our paints. So I'm just going to do a quick tutorial. I'm not sure how quick it's going to be because the actual mixing of the paints typically takes a little while. But it's going to be a tutorial on how to mix the paints, and then we'll do a second tutorial on the actual pouring process from the mixing of the paints that I do today. So we'll start off with the basics. I have my little tray that I keep all my paints on once I have my cups ready. That's just easier for me to take it to my studio. And by studio, I mean like bathroom right now because we don't have a studio at the moment. So unfortunately we have to work where we can. I know a lot of you understand that. So just going over supplies really quick. I use a plain clear cup like this. This one already has water in it for me to mix with my paints. I don't use an actual painting medium. I just use water. It works really well for me. And I figure if something works well for me, why change it? But eventually I'll probably do some experimenting with that later on down the road.
This is all super cheap. You can get these cups from the dollar store.
Yeah, we got these cups from the dollar store. They're like small little Dixie cups. And they come in a pack of like, I don't know, 25 or 36. Comes in a pack of 36. These bigger ones are same thing from the dollar store. They're 28 count. Works for me. We have our little popsicle sticks that I use to mix all of our colors. And I bought a pack of 1,000 of them for a box of 1,000 for like $5.99, I think it was. So the silicones that we use, we have the treadmill silicone. As you can see, we got it for $14.99, and we got it at, where was it? Not Dunham's. It was a sports place.
It is Dunham's.
Was it Dunham Sports?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Dunham Sports.
So it's Dunham Sports here in North Carolina. I don't know what kind of places you have where you're at, especially if you're out of the country.
I would look at maybe any kind of sports store like Dick's Sporting Goods that has treadmills. They may have this lubricant.
And I know for sure that you can get it online on Amazon. This was just a really, really great deal because it comes with 3, and we've been using this for quite some time. And let's see, it's just under 40 mils that you get with it, and we have barely made a dent in it. So we don't use very much, and you don't need very much for your pours. So it comes with 3. $14.99 is not a bad deal for 3 things of silicone that are going to last you a long time. Another type of silicone that we use, and I use this for the inside of my cup, you'll see me do this in a little bit, is the Blaster silicone lubricant. You can get it from Walmart. I think it was like
automotive aisle.
Yeah, it was like $4 or $5. And this stuff lasts forever too, especially since we stopped using it as much and just for the inside of the cup.
You can use it instead of treadmill lubricant or anything like that.
Or WD-40. Whatever you have, you can typically find something that's going to give you the cells that you're looking for. 4 or 5, sorry. And so, you know, you can find things that will give you the cells. We had several different ones that we were using, and this is what I have found that gives us the best cells so far, especially not using a medium. So as far as paints go, we have a lot of different kinds of paints because my husband is already an artist and he does a lot of painting as it is. So I kind of took over all of his paints and made them into my own because I started doing this. So we have everything from the Simply acrylics from Walmart. You know, we have that as well. And then we have the Liquitex. That is from
Basics. We get that from
Hobby Lobby. And I also use the Apple Barrel. I don't use Apple Barrel White. I have heard so many bad reviews about the Apple Barrel White that I just refuse to use it because I don't want it to crack my paints or my finished products. We have a lot of the metallics and neons and color shifting. These are all from Folk Art. Yeah, that's a Folk Art too. And then you can also get some, oh, that's full part too. Okay. You can get the glow paints. It really doesn't matter what you're working with. We got this from Hobby Lobby for $4.99 and it's pretty big. So
very well.
It does work very, very well. So this is the colors that we're going to be working with today. The black is going to be a base, wet base for my pour today. And the white is going to be layered in with my other colors. My other colors are, I can't even see that. It's a blue violet color shifting by Folkart. And then we have a neon yellow by Folkart. And then we have a neon pink by Folkart. And then there's the candy pink from Apple Barrel. And the honeysuckle pink from Apple Barrel as well. So
those Apple Barrel paints are super good and cheap. They're small bottles, yes, but when you thin them out, you can get a lot out of one, and
it's 50 cents for one bottle.
50 cents.
And
that's nothing.
It says it's a matte acrylic paint, so you don't have to worry about it being a gloss or a matte, because if you're putting a gloss finish over it, then it doesn't have to be a gloss when you're using it. And I've noticed that, and that's awesome. So I love the Apple Barrels. They're 50 cents a piece. I can stack up on a whole bunch of different colors for fairly cheap, and they go a decent ways when you're using them. So I'm gonna go ahead and start getting to work on our colors. I will actually do our ring. Oh yeah, he always has to remind me to take my ring off, or else it'll get messy, and I don't want that. So we're gonna work on our smaller colors here, and I'm gonna do a white to integrate into the other colors as well. And then the black is gonna be a base color that I'm gonna pour on top of. So we'll go ahead and start on that. And so I don't use anything to figure out what I'm doing. I don't measure, I don't weigh it. It basically just goes by how it looks to me.
It's an educated guess, basically. Not even educated, I guess. It's more just a whatever you think you might need, and if you have extra, you have extra. But
yeah, there's sometimes when I pour so much off my canvas, and you know, it may be a waste of paint, but at least I know I had enough to fill my canvas. You know, there's other people who may not be able to do something like that because it is bright. That's why I love it. Because of finances, our finances are not the best right now, but when you're working with a 50-cent bottle, you can do that. You know, you can afford to use 50 cents to get a bottle to be able to experiment. Absolutely. So these have already been shook up and ready to go. So there's no separation in the colors at all. Oh, these are so pretty. I love the trio of pink. I'm a pink person. I've actually recently started really liking the color purple. And I'm kind of in love with it. But pink has always been my all-time favorite color. So I'm going to show you exactly how it looks while you're mixing it. Hopefully our camera can get the consistency as I'm mixing these, because it's very important to really pay attention to your colors as you're mixing them. If you don't pay attention to them and you don't pay attention to the consistency of them, either your paint's going to be too thin or it's going to be too thick. And so, and your paints may work really well as a, I don't need that, I need a big one, as a thin, a super thin, or, oh, I already pulled it out, look, my husband's on it. Your paints may work for you if they're a little bit thicker or if they're a little bit thinner than what I use. This is all just based on what I personally do. So take it with a grain of salt and experiment with it yourself. I'm no expert in any means, or else I would be like weighing everything out and being awesome and not knocking things over. Oh, I did need that, the big one.
Oh, did you?
Because it's going to be my pour cup, but I'm going to put black in there. It's fine. I'm all shaky today. I've had like 4 cups of coffee. I think that's why I'm shaky, actually.
Probably.
Yeah. Hope there's no claw piece in there. Any boogers. So, I said quick tutorial. This is actually going to take quite some time, and I'm sorry that it's going to be a longer video. But I'm not sorry, because it's actually going to give you guys an idea of our process. And I know a lot of you who have commented, which I absolutely adore the comments that we've been getting on our processes and our paintings. It's been great. But I know a lot of you have been really interested in how we go about doing this. So I just pour my colors in and I put my sticks in. That way I know that I don't need like a million sticks out. Boom, done. Done. That's it. That's all you do. I'm just kidding. That's not it. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and start off with, let's start off with an, yeah, we'll start off with the yellow. And then we'll move from the apple barrels, or not apple barrels, but the folk arts into the apple barrel colors. Because the apple barrel colors react differently than the folk arts, and the folk arts act differently than the Anitas. So...
But they all mix well together. There's no issues with them not, well,
not mixing correctly.
Yeah.
If you really mix them and continue to mix them until they're smooth, then you shouldn't have any gloops or any boogers or whatever you want to call them in there, and it should be a smooth mix. So again, I don't weigh anything out. I just pour in there. So
the smartest thing you can do is go little at a time.
Little at a time.
Until you get the right consistency.
And this is basically what I already know. So you just start mixing it up. And then you're going to see that it's like this weird consistency. Continue to mix. Because if you don't continue to mix, then it's just not going to be, it's not going to be mixed. And then you're not going to be able to pour it. Well, you could pour it, but you're not going to get the results that you're looking for out of it. Okay. So, this is still a little thick. For me, this is still a little thick. I hear a lot of people saying the consistency that you're looking for is either like a warm cream, or like a fresh cream, or a warm honey. I typically go just a little tiny bit thinner than a warm honey. You still want it to roll off of your stick, your mixing stick, very well without breaking up. Because if it's breaking up, it's going to be too thick or too thin. One or the other. I mean, it'll do it in both instances, so that's a little bit better. I might go just a little bit more. And then, like I said, I just eyeball it and try and figure out what the consistency is best for me. Perfect. So this is the consistency that I always look for. It's, like I said, a little bit thinner than a warm honey. And then that one's done. And you move on to the next. So this is the color shifting. I actually really, it's almost therapeutic just mixing the paints for me. I mix them for my husband because he can't get his consistency correct, no matter how many times I've tried to teach him. Mixing the color shifting and the metallics is so much fun for me. And here's another thing. If you look in the side of the cup, you'll see that there's pieces that haven't been mixed in, and you can see the water kind of dripping down the side of the cup. That just means that you haven't mixed well enough with everything in your cup. So the color shifting paints, that's still a little thick. We got to go a little bit thinner. The color shifting paints tend to take a little bit more. Folk art tends to take a little bit more water than the apple barrel, because apple barrel is already thin. So you don't have to put as much in the apple barrel to thin it out. It's usually a pretty much quicker process to do that. But I know that the Simply acrylics, like this, these take a lot more water to thin out because they're more of a heavy-bodied acrylic. Okay, that is still a little bit thick. Gonna go with a little bit more water. Just gotta eyeball it. Keep an eye on it while you're mixing it. See how it's mixing together. See how it's looking. And that is the consistency that I typically go for. It's not breaking apart when you're pouring it off. There's a bubble in there. Pop the bubble. And it's not too thick, it's not too thin, it's not pulling right off of the stick. So that's really what you're looking for. So this is the neon pink from the folk art. So we're just going to continue on with folk art, and then we'll be getting into the apple barrel colors here in just a moment. See, if we really look at it, I don't know, some people, and we're all learning, we're all trying to figure it out. Some people talk about how theirs is still clumpy, and I just have to think, did you mix it? How long did you mix it for? You can't just mix it like 2 times around the cup and then hope that it's good. You really got to get that water or that medium in there and mix it really well, because if not, it's just not going to be what you're looking for. Like I said, I've never worked with a medium, and I just do water because it's cheaper and I don't have to relearn how to work with a medium. So again, that's the consistency that you're looking for, and that one's done. So these are going to be the apple barrel colors, the rest of the trio of pink. So these ones don't take nearly as much to thin them out. Now you'll see as you're mixing it, I don't know if there's going to be good enough light to see it, but as you're mixing it, it's, when you first start, you can see the water mixing in with it, and it makes like these little chunks, and you just got to keep mixing through the little chunky phase of it. See, and look at this, and this is way too thick. So you just put a little bit more water in there and thin it out. And you know, if you go too thin, you can always put a little bit more paint in there to thicken it up. If you go too thick, you just put a little bit of water in there to thin it out.
It's harder to thicken it back up than it is to thin it.
You're going to end up with a lot of paint. So it's thinning out now. Still not to where we need it to be. Ow. My tootsies. Mixing, mixing, mixing. We are always mixing our paint. That's closer to what we're looking for. So it's not nearly as thick as it was. It runs right off of the stick without breaking up. That's what we want. On to the next.
Also apple barrel.
Also apple barrel. See, I don't know if you can see it the way it's looking. It's just separated. You can see the separation in it, and as you continuously mix it, you'll see it start to smooth out, and that's when you know like your mixing is getting it's integrating the paint with the water, or the water with the paint. And you're getting towards the point where you can decide whether you need more water or not. It's still thick, so we're going to do a little bit more water. Perfect. Now the white is the Anita's all-purpose acrylic. So this one tends to be, it is watered down a little bit. I don't want to say watered down, but thinner. But it's really hard to explain. Like, it is thicker, but it's also thinner, and it's kind of a weird consistency. So these ones can be a little bit finicky, and you really have to pay attention to your mixing on them. Because as with some of the other ones where, you know, as many rotations as I've done, it would have been okay to decide at that point. This is still a little chunky, so you really gotta get in there. If you're using these little paper cups, I always kind of scrape the bottom and the sides to make sure that I'm getting all the paint in there mixed up, because if not, you're gonna have little chunkies in there. You don't want those. So that's getting closer to what we're looking for. It's still a little bit thick, so we're just going to hit a little bit more water in there. Just a tiny bit, just little drops. I have arthritis and carpal tunnel, so this like kills my hands to do this, but it's the love of painting that like pushes me through. I know that there's an awesome in-game happening where I can do some art therapy, so kind of just push through with it. So this is more of the consistency that I'm looking for. I don't know if he'll be able to get it or not, but when you're looking down into your paint cup, you want to see your paint kind of pile a little bit, but then immediately drip back down and even itself out. That's how I know that my consistency is dead on. That one's done. Then we go on to the big one, because this is going to be our black base. And hopefully this is enough paint. That piece is relatively large, but it's not too bad. So for this, because it's in a bigger cup, I just made a, there's just enough water to cover all of the paint on top. I don't know if you can see it. There's the water. So just a small layer on top of it, just because there's so much black paint in here. And these bigger cups are kind of a pain to stir in. I won't even lie about that. That's why I like the little cups, the little Dixie cups, to stir in, and then I use this for like pour cups. Because this one has, on the bottom, it has little indents on it, and trying to get the stick in there so there's no extra paint left behind, and it's a pain in the butt. So obviously, ooh, that's a glob, gross. Let's get that out of there. We've noticed with the Anita's, I believe that's what it's called. I need a little cup. With the Anita's, I've noticed that some of them, mainly the black is the only one that I've had an issue with so far, has little globs in it every once in a while. I know a lot of people strain theirs. I don't have time for that in my life, to be straining through mine. So I typically just find them when I'm mixing. That's why looking at your paint consistency is so important too, because if there's any like little globs in there, you'll be able to find them. I am shaking like crazy today. Too much coffee. All the caffeine. Yay. We're waiting for snow. There's supposed to be snow today. Like I've said in previous videos, like the one we posted last night. We posted 2 last night, but one of them, I was saying that we live in North Carolina, so it's not very often that we actually get snow. More than anything, we get like sleet, and it's horrible. They shut down the whole town. It's hilarious. David comes from Massachusetts, so he's not used to that. I come from Arizona. I don't understand what the white stuff is that's falling from the sky. So we kind of met in the middle, and you know, he doesn't understand why they shut down the whole town. That's just how North Carolina works. They're not used to the snow. Our DOT is not ever prepared, ever, for an actual winter. So, alright, so this is getting closer. It's still pretty thick. I'm going to put a little bit more water in it. You can just see by the way that it's on the stick. It's just a little thick. I have the hiccups now too. What is happening with my life? Ah, that's still a little bit thick. There's a lot of paint in there, so you gotta just work with it. Sometimes it will go quicker than others. Sometimes it seems like it takes forever. There's some days that I'm sitting here mixing colors for either me or David, and I feel like I'm sitting here for an hour mixing colors. And it's ridiculous. But then there's times where I'll sit down and then be right back up because I'm done mixing. And it just depends on what you're working with, how many colors you're mixing to. Alright, that's much better. So that's, as per usual, that's the consistency we're looking for. Awesome. Alright, so the black, I'm not going to put any silicone in. Because it's just going to be a base color. Get that out of the way. Nobody wants that. Bogeys. Troll bogeys. Nerds. Anyways. So we're going to use the silicone. The treadmill silicone. I do 3 to 4 drops in each color. Obviously, depending on how much of the color that you have, how much paint you have in yours. If you have only like a small amount of paint in yours, you should probably do 1 to 2 drops. If you have a larger amount of paint like these ones where they're 3/4, just a little over half to 3/4 full, you want to use a little bit more. So with mine, I typically use 3 drops, 2 to 3 drops. These ones, because they're a little bit more full, I'm going to use 4 drops in them. Hopefully it'll create some pretty big cells when we do our painting. Now, the biggest thing about this silicone, this treadmill silicone, it is thick. And that's awesome because it really helps, it really helps everything come together. But you don't want to mix it too much. Mixing it too much will basically make the silicone null and void. You might as well not have any silicone at all. Or putting too much in will do that too. We learned that the hard way when we were using a sprayed silicone. So I usually just go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, done. And that's mixed. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, done. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, done. That's usually why I put the silicone closer to like where the stick is. That's why. That was 6. I'm getting crazy. Don't mind me. So these are all done and ready to go. Now we're going to go ahead and layer them in my cup. If you're doing a dirty pour, which is what I'm going to be doing, or a dirty flip, this is how I do it. So I take my spray silicone, I shake it up, and then I take my cup and I just spray one spray. Usually I get it dead center. Sometimes I don't. If you don't get it dead center, I don't recommend typically doing 2 sprays in there because sometimes it'll be too much. So I just kind of move it around inside of the cup. And there's just enough in there to coat the inside just a little bit. There's not enough in there to make it like runny to where you hold it upside down and it's dripping out everywhere. Alright, so now the process is layering. And I just like to go...
Typically the first one you pour in is going to be the last color that comes out.
Mm-hmm. Since I'm doing a black background, I like to have like a bright white or a bright color on the very bottom. That way, when you're pulling it out, there's some brightness to it in case things happen to get muddy in there. Because that does happen every once in a while. Especially, I've heard, if you're not using a medium, like I'm not. Shame on me. Blah, blah, blah. I mean, everybody's got their own thing going on. And I just don't want to use a medium. I don't like using mediums. Actually, I should put the cup right here for you so you can see. And, okay, so I will let everybody in on a secret. I hate the color yellow. I absolutely hate the color yellow. I don't know why. There's something about it that just irks me the wrong way. I don't like yellow. It all just looks like mustard to me. And I told that to my husband yesterday and he laughed at me. But for the sake of this painting, we're going to be using the color yellow because sometimes you have to use colors that you don't particularly like just to make your painting look really, really good. So if you notice in the cup while I'm pouring everything in, there's already a ton of selling happening as the colors are combining and kind of mixing by themselves. So that's always a plus. Sometimes I'll get done pouring my colors in and I just sit here and watch them all sell up together and be pretty and combine. And then my husband asks me why it's taking me so long. And that's typically my response. I'm watching things happen in my cup. Why not? So after I get done layering all of my colors in there, I usually let my cup sit for anywhere from 3 to 5 minutes, sometimes a little bit more depending how much paint's in there. Just because the silicone that you spray, well, that I sprayed in, oh, it looks like flour, has time to go from the bottom to the cup up to the top of the cup. And then once you flip or once you start pouring, that's typically going to be on the bottom of the cup again. So, on the bottom of the pour. So, you just want time for the silicone to come up and hang out with all the colors. Everybody's got to be included. I do apologize. I talk about things like inanimate objects like they're real things in life. Like they have feelings and stuff. That's just the way I do things. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just mixing colors. So if anybody saw that, that wasn't a glop that just fell in there. It was an air bubble. And letting it sit for a few minutes lets all the bubbles rise to the top too. So you can take care of that before you start pouring on it. And then I just finish off my colors like this. And start stacking pretty little cups together. It's going to be such a long video, I'm so sorry, but I feel like the people who are asking questions, which we absolutely love, by the way, I love answering questions for people because, like I said, I'm in no way an expert, but if I can say something that's going to help you, then I with your painting or your process,
or even if you see something that we do that you know a better way, a better technique.
Absolutely, absolutely.
We accept all of that.
We're always so happy to hear what others have to say. We like getting our work seen just like everybody else likes getting their work seen. So we
like to share.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's no harm in it. We like constructive criticism. And we can actually handle constructive criticism. There's, if you're, nope, goodness, don't throw your cups around, by the way. If you're actually being like an honest person and are actually looking to help somebody with constructive criticism, I will take that 100% of the time. If somebody is going on a thread and commenting just to be rude, I don't take that very well because I don't like rude people. I think rude people need to keep their mouth shut. It bugs me. I'm not a rude person. I'm a very, very nice person. And I don't like seeing people get their feelings hurt or getting upset because somebody said something that was very, very rude to them. So that's just me. That's my take on life today. Wisdom while pouring paints and mixing. Okay. So, there's all of my paints together. It's beautiful. What we're going to do is we're going to let this sit for probably about 5 minutes or so while I get everything else set up in our pouring area. And then we will do a second video for a part deux for the actual pour that we're about to do. So thank you guys for watching, and like I always say, if you have questions, comments, concerns for our safety, please comment below, and we will see you in a few minutes for our next pour.